So imagine a young college graduate, fresh out of school, and I worked in public accounting. And in public accounting, you have these mentors and people that you work for. And one of my mentors introduced me to the Franklin Planner. It looked like that. I had one that looked like that eventually. The Franklin Planner was developed by Hyrum Smith in 1984. I could have sworn it existed for hundreds of years before that. He did base it on some things, but Hyrum Smith developed it in 1984, named it after Benjamin Franklin, who was famous and well-known for his organizational skills and things like that. It's a paper-based planning system that can allow you to plan forward, to take notes, to track to-dos, all in one place wrapped up in a binder made specifically for these pre-printed pages. In fact, my parents, creative as they were, would purchase the guts of the planner for me the whole year, a page a day, the guts of the planner for me for my birthday every year. Those Lyles are a creative bunch. But I will admit that I got nerdy enough at some point to ask for a binder in all of the different liturgical colors so I could change the binder that you saw up there out with the liturgical season. That is a true church nerd. But it wasn't just the planner and the pages, it was the whole system that enamored me. Knowing that everything was there in one place, keeping notes for that day, documenting commitments made during the meeting for the future, immediately putting a deadline in just the right date and page. Remembering that, oh yeah, we talked about that last Wednesday, and flipping back and seeing if I had written anything down. You with me? Got some kind of system like that, right? Now, I will share that documenting so much did get me in trouble when I was called for a deposition once and asked if I had produced all of the requested documents entirely. And when I said yes, they said, "What about your planner? We understand you are a copious note taker." I stopped taking copious notes after that time. But I really, truly was in my element when I had my Franklin Planner. And then I started to feel guilty about all the paper. A lot of paper I was using and committing to every year. Stressed my parents out when I said, I'm going to go digital. What do we get you for your birthday? I had used this system for 30 years and was just starting to get that little nudge that maybe it was time to go digital. So during the pandemic, I found Stacy Harmon, who is a certified Evernote consultant, the Evernote elephant. During the pandemic, she helped me and others establish a new digital productivity system based on much the same practices that I had already learned in the Franklin Planner system. We just converted it to digital, and I'm still using that. So in my life, I have been a productivity machine. But eventually, like many of us, I had to ask myself, why am I doing all of this? Why am I creating it? I know you do this. You say, I haven't done anything today, so at the end of the day, you put that little box there and say, brush teeth and cross it off. Do you do that? That's my productivity for the day. But we ask ourselves that question, why am I doing this? We ask it so many times in our lives, especially at the beginning of the year or at the end of a year. So many people make those resolutions that are broad or general or even documented using that SMART method for goals. Look it up. I had become so caught up in the idea of productivity that I forgot the most important why question. And it was right there in front of me. This is what I had learned at the Franklin, with the Franklin Planner. Do you have my pyramid? No pyramid? Okay, there it is. I had forgotten what was right in front of me. The bottom tier of that pyramid that you probably can't read says values. What are your values? That is your why. How many can relate to that? We check the boxes to show we've done something, but maybe that something doesn't really relate to who we are or who we want to be as a person. Maybe that something doesn't do anything to bring about a better world, or it doesn't do anything to deepen our relationship with God or with each other. Maybe we're just checking boxes. Where there is no vision, the people perish. That term vision, in a translation of a Hebrew word, hazon. That noun is used 35 times in the Old Testament. It's related to the verb huzzah, and don't get excited like Pirates of the Caribbean, huzzah. It's not that. It's huzzah, which means to see or to receive by revelation. To receive by revelation. The vision is a means through which God can give us revelations. It's more than just a seeing vision or a dream or a visual rendering of something, though. It's something that's deep in your heart. It's a revelation, a knowing, an understanding that we are on the right path with God. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Another way to hear that is without vision, we lose our vitality, our spiritual vitality. So today, this last Sunday in the calendar year, when so many people are setting goals and resolutions and reflecting for the coming year, let's focus on vision. What in our unique image of God is God revealing to each of us this morning or today? We're going to practice something. We're going to follow a practice I try to use every year that I've called values-based resolutions. Some of you know this from a couple of years ago when I led an online class about this. There were about 10 people that participated, so this is a repeat, but it's the time of year that you should be doing this anyway. And there are 3 steps to this, the first of which is to determine what values are important to you. What means something to you? It's a feeling that you have. Step 1, you'll find that we handed out the piece of paper, the list from Brene Brown's Dare to Lead Hub. Brene Brown is a fellow Longhorn. We didn't go to school at the same time, but we both claimed the Longhorns as our alma mater. And she is a well-known author and researcher for bravery, vulnerability, authenticity, and studying things like that. And she has this list of values of what are important to you. This is not an all-inclusive list. There may be things that you would add to it, but it's a list to start from. This is what many people find important and want to be people who represent these values. If you want to grab a pen, you can do that. A pencil, you can do that. But online people, I think Aaron is going to put this in the chat so you can see what we're talking about. But how do these values become instilled in us? I think you probably know some of that from your family, from educators, and yes, from spiritual mentors and people that we surround ourselves with during our faith journey. Take a minute to look at the list, and after you've looked at it, I'm asking you to circle or make note of 3 values that resonate with you today. 3 values. Which of these on the list call out to you? Where you are spiritually right now in your journey? Which of these do you value, but you aren't convinced that you are representing that value in your daily life? Or maybe you just don't think you are, or you don't realize you are. Or maybe you have discerned that one of these values is more important than the other, and you'd like to dig a little deeper to understand how God is calling you to embody that particular value. Take note of those 3. Now, here's one I'll use for our example here. I'm picking the word compassion. Step 2. Of those 3 values that you pick, define what they mean to you. What does that word, what does that value mean to me? Like, if you were at home or if you're using a pencil right here and write it down. Write it down on the back of the page, leaving room to write something else between the 3. Define it for yourself. For compassion, it might be defined this way: compassion, having a heart to help others who are suffering. That's a value that I've seen at Arapahoe, and that clearly is a call from God. Having a heart for receiving, to help others who are suffering. So take a minute, close your eyes, and feel the word within you. Maybe breathe 3 times and say the word as you exhale. What does each word mean to you? And then open your eyes and write that down on the back of the page. Or maybe recite it to yourself a couple of times. Think through it. Step 3 of this value-based resolutions. In that same reflective and contemplative manner of those 3 words that you just defined, or even if you just defined one of them, ask yourself, how do I know that I am upholding that value? What is it about you that God calls for that you are embodying that value? We're asked often by church members, by other clergy, by district superintendents in the ordination process, where did you see Christ incarnate today? And that Christ incarnate is within you as you act out and as you share God's love with other people. Whether you're relieving people of suffering, whether you're holding someone's hand, whether you're showing love, whether you're teaching someone how to read, or whether you're sitting in prayer with someone, or whether you're just contemplating and sitting still on your own. All of this is incarnate Christ that lives within you, the Jesus within you, and that is the embodiment of these values that you're looking at. This is the why of what you're doing. So here's an example using the value of compassion. We said compassion is having a heart to help others who are suffering. How do I know that I'm embodying that value? I make time to listen to those who are hurting or need help with something. I strive to offer grace to those who act out their fears and hurts, just as God has given that grace to me. 2 examples, not necessarily what you would call resolutions, but understanding of how you are embodying and working through the values that you hold dear that God has called you to. So now I would ask that you practice this step, and for each of the values you selected, or maybe even one, try to think of 2 ways today that you can embody that value. How can you embody it? It's not a goal per se. Again, it's not those smart merits and things that, it's not an acronym. It's discernment of what God is calling of you. It's understanding your values and thereby understanding the vision that God has placed on your heart. So I'm going to ask you to take this list with you and practice that this week. Get to 3 of them and write it down. And then when you do that, if you type it up or write it down or whatever, post it somewhere or keep it somewhere and pull it out every once in a while during the year and remind yourself of this. This is something that I try to walk through with people every year. It's been beneficial that people understand a little more and ask themselves the why. And for us as Christians, the why is God. The why is hope. Hope in the eternal Christ who's always going to be there with us. Hope in the eternal promises that God has given us. We are here to serve God and to serve each other, to love each other. And I know that that is a core value for each person in here. I've seen it. So I ask you and I encourage you to take this list and work on it this week, maybe even as a family. Pick one and do it as a family. I'm thankful that you walked through this with me today. And as I said, many of you are saying, Pastor Kathy, this isn't exactly a sermon. But it's also not just an exercise. Discernment is something that is intimately intertwined with understanding God's call on your life today. That's the vision we're talking about here, God's vision, the Spirit's revelation of what is already on your heart. My prayer is that you embrace God's vision and the Spirit's call for you, whatever that is, whatever value it is, uniquely you, and that you continue to live into that, learning and listening as we all make a better world for each other. May it ever be so. Amen.